Hello guys, welcome to my STEM project number 2. This is going to be the design a parachute project. Okay, so the project objectives is you have a friend who likes to eat M&M candy, and so you decide to share your M&M tube with him, but he lives on the floor below you and you can't leave your house because of social distancing. But then you get the plan to build a parachute and drop the candy down to his floor. The challenge is to design and build a parachute that will float down and remain in the air as long as possible. It will also land as close to your friend as possible with no M&M spilled in the process. So for the project criteria and constraints, your parachute, you must design a parachute to protect the payload because you don't want the thing to break in the middle and spill all over the place. You must design a solution that will not spill any M&Ms. You must design a solution that allows your friend to quickly and easily remove the teaspoon and M&Ms. So if you just design something huge and difficult to make, it's not going to count because it's too difficult for your friend. You must also design a parachute that will remain in the air for as long as possible. You must design a parachute that will land as close as possible to your friend, and you may not use an unmodified plastic bag, so you can't just use a plastic bag with no other modifications. You also may not change your payload or its weight once you've chosen it. So once you pick it, that's it. So for my initial brainstorming process, I came up with 3 different ideas to use. The first idea being a double parachute mode of transportation, in which you just basically, it's 2 parachutes holding up the payload. My second idea that I came up was almost the same as the first one, but instead of 2 parachutes, it was going to be held by 3. And lastly, and ultimately the idea that I used for design A would be the single parachute, in which a singular larger parachute holds up the payload. Here now is my time lapse in which I'm building the first design, my design A, in which it is a single parachute payload carrier. After the building process, this is what it ended up looking like in the end. Just simply the payload taped together, some string attached to it, which ties into the parachute, which is supposed to hold it down. Here I'm beginning my 3 tests in which I drop my parachute down from 4 meters in height. I made sure to measure correctly, that is 4 meters in height. And basically, I'm just dropping it down, and the landing zone is right underneath where the ladder ends. So that was my main goal for the tests. Thoughts after finishing my tests and the first initial design A. So basically, I would say that this design was successful, but at the same time, it was kind of not successful. This is because it was successful because the parachute safely landed onto the landing zone with minimal to no damage. Also, there was no spilling of M&Ms, and the parachute slowed the descent and prevented the M&Ms from flying everywhere. However, even though it met certain criteria for the project, it wasn't good enough. It slowed it down, but it slowed down very little, and the parachute had a minimal effect on the descent. And so, even though it worked, I still feel like it was unsuccessful, and it still requires modifications and tuning. For the variables that I'm going to change after the first design is that I decided to change 2 variables. First, the strings, they were kind of useless. Well, they held up and they did their job, but it wasn't doing it very well. And the strings were very lightly tied, and they weren't put on very well, so I decided to change those. And as for the second one, I decided to add another parachute to the design, making my single parachute design become a double parachute design. This is because the parachute just really didn't do what it needed to do. It slowed down the descent, but barely any, and it was really weak in doing its job. So I decided to double the power and add another parachute. And now this is my time lapse in which I am building design B, in where it's basically I just create the second parachute and I attach it to my payload, as well as replace the strings for the old payload. And now these are my tests in which I'm testing my second parachute, and I'm throwing it off the same distance, 4 meters off the wall and into the floor. So thoughts after finishing Design B. Was it more successful or was it not? Yes, Design B was much more successful at solving the problem than Design A. Adding tighter strings made it so much easier and so much better for the parachute not to come apart. The tighter strings made it much better and much safer for the parachute, as well as the second parachute. Just basically, it did its job. It worked as intended. It's made it go much slower than the first one, and it worked much better. And so basically, it was just an upgrade of the previous. I fixed what was wrong with it, and I upgraded it to make it better. Now for my evaluation of the project, think about Design A and modified Design B. Which one did it best? Design B, definitely. It was basically just an upgrade of Design A, and it just did its job. It did everything Design A did, but better. It was more structurally sound, and the second parachute just helped much more with the falling. If I had to imagine that I'm gonna make further modifications, is that for Design C, I would just once again add another parachute. Nothing can go wrong. Once you add another parachute, it's gonna fall down even slower because it's just gonna resist the air more, and it would just do its job but better. It would basically be another upgrade of Design B, and so I can't think of anything else I'd want to do with it other than add another parachute, because it would just upgrade it and make it much better. So, if I were to have chosen another solution, I really couldn't have thought of anything else. With everything I have, like the resources available to me, I don't think I'm able to come up with a different solution. Now, however, if I had better access to different materials and more resources to build whatever I wanted, I would for sure, instead of using the plastic bags to create that double parachute, I would instead try to have made one singular, bigger, really big parachute in order to make it fall. I think that would have worked much better, as well as there wouldn't be any problems, as it was kind of annoying to handle around the double parachute as the strings kept getting tangled up with each other. If I could have tested in another way, I don't really know any other way I could have tested, because basically the testing was dropping at 4 meters down. Maybe I could have changed it so the landing spot was not directly under me, but maybe to the side, and see how that would work. But other than that, I really can't think of anything. Well, anyways, thank you guys for watching. This was my STEM project number 2, the Design a Parachute project.